As we draw closer to the end of this incredibly boring and bland year in which nothing of consequence or interest happened at all, or at least that's what I keep telling myself, much to my therapist's dismay, we can look on to 2021 and ask what on earth is going to happen, but more importantly, what fragrances are we going to wear? And so I have another question for you. What are the top 8 men's fragrance lines going into 2021? These are not necessarily the brands themselves, but we're talking about the lines and the ranges within them. What is the best range of fragrance? This list will not just be about popularity, although that will be a factor that's included. This is more about the quality of the line in itself, the variety, the range, and also how modern. There are some ranges and lines of fragrances that have aged quite poorly, and we want to talk about lines that are either up and coming or lines that are current and smell good and modern for your benefit. Now, this is a ranked list. There will be a definitive number 1. Can you guess what the range will be? If you did guess Winnie the Pooh, well, yes, congratulations, you've spoiled it for yourself. Winnie Pooh's number 1. Now go away. Let's start at the top with number 8, the Bleu de Chanel line. Yes, the original blue fragrance, and to some, the best. This is a modest line of only 3 fragrances, but they have such defined characteristics in each fragrance. This is a consistently popular fragrance line in the designer world. The original EDT is like a sleek young man who wants to take on the world and seek adventure, power, and life experience at any costs. The EDP is a fruitier yet richer scent that is for someone who wants to enjoy life, but take it a little slower, and to really enjoy the moments of his life moment by moment. Whilst the Parfum is a deeper, darker incense scent that's a lot more mature and a little jaded. Guess which one is my favourite? Although seemingly limited with just 3 fragrances that all have similar DNA, if you really take the time to enjoy and appreciate the different nuances that are brought to the table and the very striking characters of each of the fragrances, they can definitely be enjoyed by separate men, sometimes even with separate tastes. The Bleu de Chanel line is an ever popular fragrance line that started the trend of blue fragrances that we're all being enslaved by today. Check it out. Number 7, the Givenchy Gentleman line. It's funny to think that a fragrance line that started in 1979 is now only starting to feel like an up-and-coming line. The original Gentleman is still readily available and is pleasant, but a little bit dated. But Gentleman 2017, Gentleman EDP, and Gentleman EDP Boisé are all solid releases. Very solid quality, although there are problems with performance, especially and annoyingly with one of their best releases, not just in this line, but in the entire Givenchy catalogue for the past few years, Gentleman Cologne. Now, I've already talked about this one and the pros and cons of it until I'm literally blue in the face, but the Cologne version has one of the best, and I'm talking the best, citrus vetiver openings that's been released by a designer house in the past few years. So with this, you've got a modest but eclectic line. You've got a really solid amount of variety with the fun iris woody sweetness of the EDP Boisé, which did have a rather polarizing response. Some declaring it their new favourite fragrance ever, and others not being able to look past the subpar performance. That seems to be the theme of these new gentleman scents: incredible openings to die for, filled with passion and vigour, and then sort of giving up and finishing quickly, which coincidentally is what your mum tells me is the performance of your father on the night that you were conceived. Number 6, Christian Dior, Sauvage. Oh, Sauvage, that is. I actually feel that one of the most underrated lines in all of fragrance right now is the Eau Sauvage line, which, although the common complaint is that some of them smell too old, I think that that's not completely accurate and actually quite close-minded. Fragrances such as Eau Sauvage Parfum are legitimate bangers no matter what age you are. These are some of the best masculine fragrances on the market. You want to talk about high quality, quintessential men's fragrances, Eau Sauvage is still one of the strongest contenders on the market today. For younger chaps, I'd recommend something like Eau Sauvage Cologne, or even Eau Sauvage Extreme, which has a more contemporary sweetness that can easily be worn by a modern man. Although, of course, you will have to be open to the harsh and rough neroli note which proliferates throughout the entire line. The sheer quality and precision that are in these fragrances, added to the fact that they have fallen somewhat under the radar in recent years, means that if you pick one of these up that is suited to you, you will have a truly brilliant, masculine, high quality fragrance that not too many people are wearing, and that can sometimes be a very good thing. The Eau Sauvage line is a classic generational line that has continued from strength to strength even up to now, and I'd highly recommend that you check it out. Number 5, the Scent line by Hugo Boss. I've started drinking the Kool-Aid with this line quite a bit, and I do really recommend people check out this line, as these are truly wonderful modern designer fragrances. The original Scent fragrance is a lovely, fluffy, sweet, somewhat floral vanilla designer, a lot more softer than its flankers, Absolute and especially Private Accord. Intense is a great contrast to the original, also with the use of leather. These fragrances are modern, sweet designers for the modern man. Some people could argue that this is a line primarily and maybe only for younger people with its sweetness, but I'd argue that with the vetiver in Absolute that makes it a lot more balanced and sophisticated, and the dark bitter chocolate that's in the Private Accord, and the leather element, which is somewhat strong in the Intense, this can be a fragrance line for a variety of different men at all ages. These are highly recommended to fragrance enthusiasts or beginners who just want a solid and high quality slice of the modern designer fragrance DNA in their wardrobe right now. Number 4, Paco Rabanne, the 1 Million line. 1 Million simply doesn't get enough credit for the sheer consistency of successful flankers that they've launched. Compare that to the likes of the Lamal flankers, which is akin to milking several cows while simultaneously halfway jumping over about 50 sharks. Paco Rabanne struck lightning in a bottle with 1 Million, and the lightning has never really discharged. They just kept going and going. Now, the only issue is that 1 Million is a very confident and extroverted line, but I'd say that most people can pull at least one of them off, especially the original 1 Million. With reformulations unfortunately hitting this fragrance a couple of times, this has ironically become quieter and calmer. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still a bomb and it's still very, very extravagant, but maybe it's a little bit more wearable to a lot of people now that it has been died down and reformulated. People complain that the original 1 Million is too young and bodacious, but I think that the vanilla and cinnamon is actually pretty well executed and somewhat underrated in its warming balance that far exceeds the reach of wearability than people give it credit for. 1 Million Privé is more based on the warmth of the cinnamon and also includes tobacco, which gives it a richer and more confident, mature feel. Whilst 1 Million Lucky is so fruity and sweet, I'm surprised that it doesn't have a Surgeon General's warning regarding diabetes on the box. It's fun and outgoing and very exciting. Even 1 Million Cologne has its festive apple, cinnamon, Christmassy fun scent. And despite the outright thrashing that 1 Million Parfum has suffered, I still think, adamantly, it's actually the best one. 1 Million Parfum is a more mature and drier fragrance that minimises the sweetness and lets the more woodier elements of 1 Million breathe. Either way, this is an incredible, ever-evolving line that still to this day is very unique and stands out from the crowd. If you're interested in wearing something that is exuberant, attention-grabbing, and will make you feel very confident, even to the point of feeling as though you're the life of the party, you've got to check 1 Million out. Number 3, the Prada Lunarossa line. The Prada Lunarossa line has always been almost the opening act to the main band of Prada L'Homme. However, as great as Prada L'Homme is, it does get a little bit repetitive. Lunarossa, on the other hand, has quite an intriguing variety that helpfully doesn't make the others feel redundant, like Lunarossa Black, a more powerful, spicy scent, and then Extreme, which is more of a gourmand lover's spicy and fresh fever dream. Lunarossa Eau Sport, which is a high quality, if a bit boring, citrus aromatic, and then there's their crowning achievement, Lunarossa Carbon, which smells like Sauvage if it had had a bath, stopped culturally appropriating Native American Indians, and got a proper job. Number 2, Giorgio Armani, the Armani Code Line. The sheer scope of the Armani Code Line is getting crazier and crazier by each year. But the wonderful thing that, unlike the L'Homme line from Yves Saint Laurent, that is again just throwing out things to see if it'll stick, Armani's Code Line feels as though it's planned, it's cerebrally put out. There isn't just wild fragrance ideas just being thrown here, left and right. Every release, or mostly every release, feels worked on and earned. I wasn't the biggest fan of Armani Code Absolute Gold. I do feel as though this was a flanker too far. But the original Code, Profumo, Code Ultimate, Code Absolute, and Code Sport, and even Code Colonia are all such solid releases that give such an eclectic variety of choice. You could literally buy all of those fragrances and you'd be set for a whole year. There's enough variety and surprising creativity, especially in Code Colonia, that would keep you going. Added to the fact that the original Code still hasn't really aged, this is a great line that you've got to check out, especially if you're looking for signature casual scents right now going into 2021. However, there is a line that does it better. When researching this list, I had a plethora of lines. What's amazing about this list isn't necessarily what's in it, but also what's not in it. The Lamel line was certainly not going to be in this list, and the L'Homme line was not going to be in this list at all. But there was one fragrance line that kept consistently catching my eye, and the further research that I did, the more I realised that this just had to be number one. And the case for it got stronger and stronger every day that I looked at all of the different fragrance lines for men right now. The number one men's fragrance line that you should check out for 2021 is the Bolgari Man line. Super high quality scents, beautiful bottles, and an undeniable variety, second to none. All the way from the juniper berry spicy original Bolgari Man to the much loved and desired Bolgari Man in black, a very modern spicy scent akin to Spice Bomb, but with far more sophistication and powder that gives it an opulent class, which in itself has a hugely successful cologne variation. Transition onto the well-received Man Wood Neroli, the fragrance I personally think is the greatest jumping on point for beginners of fragrance, with its accurate and timeless tribute to the eau de cologne woody citrus genre, but they've also released more experimental and intriguing scents like Wood Essence, which has a very smouldering green woody sweetness, which would be fantastic for those looking for something more unique and intrepid. And how could I forget Man Extreme, which is the perfect summer scent if you're going to be spending all summer in a suit going to corporate business meetings. Some people would argue that it's certainly a classier line and may alienate a potential casual audience or casual consumer who just wants to wear Sauvage, but I don't think so, especially now with the release of Glacial Essence, which is following on from the popular blue fragrance DNA. Glacial Essence is okay and somewhat inevitable, but it does complete the deck of cards that almost any consumer would desire in a fragrance line right now. So in my estimation, Bolgari Man is the winner. It's got the full deck, the full range, and is superbly high quality and practical for men out there who want a modern fragrance. That is the list. I hope that you enjoyed this list, and if you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing. I'm the Fragrance Apprentice. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great 2021 and keep going with your fragrance journey. It's only going to get far more exciting. I'll see you soon on the Fragrance Press. Bye.